Hey there, sinners. It's Adam Knox, and welcome to the Book of Shadows here on the Cult of You. Now, usually when I do a book review, it's me showing you one book and then talking about a little bit about the book and then showing the index and browsing through it. That's interesting, but I wanted to explore something else today. And one of the things that I would appreciate from you is if you enjoy this new format, please share it with me and let me know. If you prefer the other format, let me know about that as well. Anyway, let's get into it. So the format that I'd like to try is actually, I have so many great books and I get to meet and discuss ideas with so many great authors, and it sometimes pains me that I only get to share one a month or something like that with you because of my time. So I wanted to try and introduce a few more authors and just see how it goes. So do please let me know about this, and also let me know what are some other things that you'd like to see, a different way of approaching this as well. I'd love to hear from you. So these are my 4 recommendations at the moment. The first one is American Metaphysical Religion. It's a heavy book, I'm not gonna lie. It's around about almost 600 pages, this one. And you know, at first when I looked at the title, I had kind of mixed feelings, especially about this idea of metaphysics as a religion. And I got to speak to Ronnie myself, and the interviews on the show were coming onto the show, depending on when you're watching this. Brilliant, down-to-earth, really connected individual that has just worked through so many different ideas. He's both a documentary filmmaker, he's a musician, he is a prolific writer, to say the least. For about 6 or 7 years, he was the screener and a close friend to Manly P. Hall himself, the great esoteric thinker. This book is a deep dive. It is a deep dive into the esoteric and occult developments in the Americas, everything from the early stages of the Bodhi tree to the advancement or the development of spiritualism inside of America, the folk traditions, the kind of sexual revolutions, the impact of metaphysics and everything in that area. This book was an absolute discovery. It was so interesting and so nice to find occult thinkers and spiritualists that I knew about, and now getting that almost deeper story of them and their journey behind it. So I can read portions of this work, but it's definitely, if you are someone that really loves the behind the scenes, if you really want to understand, you know, some of the thinking and the patterns, how this developed. He even covers Jay-Z Knight, who's the channel of Ramtha, and some of you know I've spoken about Joe Dispenza and his involvement in the Ramtha school. He looks at that revolution, that journey from spiritualist mediums. He even goes into earlier parts, talking about Houdini's, shall we say, promiscuous attempts to exploit the Witch of Lime Street, and that entire kind of crime syndicate that happened around these ideas of spiritualist mediums, as well as the real ones and the fake ones. So a very, very interesting read, quite an intense one. But again, if you are like me and you love that kind of understanding the history and the deeper expression and the period and the people's mindsets at that time, very, very good. And again, check the interview as well to support the work. I really love how he presents this idea that Christianity, we have this idea that in America, Christianity is almost the root of the tradition, and how this is really not the case, considering that most, even the founding fathers themselves, had different practices or paradigms. So definitely an interesting piece to read. Another one, and also another guest of the show, is David Elkington's The Ancient Language of Sacred Sounds, the Acoustic Science of the Divine. This is such an interesting read. And also, like, the thing that I loved about this is, you know, he starts off of his journey kind of explore, talking about his own mystical experiences in some of these religious cathedrals, how that kind of allowed him to understand the geometry of the space, how this architecture was set up in such a way to produce these acoustic states of consciousness, and how this reveals this ancient science, and he explores the idea of the logos and the world, the myth of the hero and the journey throughout this. And you know, for those of you that may be familiar, David Elkington was known publicly for the revelation of what was referred to as the Jordan-led codices. Now, these were codices that related to Jesus and the original kind of concept of that, and he was taken to fry, so to speak, by the BBC and other kind of publications or the authorities of the time, claiming as far that he faked the codices. These are actual lead and gold codices, some claiming to be written in, you know, the words of Jesus. And this is not necessarily about that. This is a deeper exploration of the kind of the science of sound, the history of these different traditions, the explorations of everything from the pyramids to the geometry. A very fascinating one. If you're into cymatics, if you're into sound healing, if you enjoyed my conversation with Aileen around the tuning forks and exploring not only that, but the spiritual mysticism in it, but also check out the interview. A very fascinating man. And the reason I bring that up is because he is working on some other publications where they've actually been able to carbon date the lead and gold. So it's a very interesting man to follow, very interesting ideas in his work, definitely worthwhile. Next, also a guest on the show again, Sherry Mandel, the Kabbalah of Writing, mystical practices of inspiration and creativity, was really not what I expected it to be. At first, I honestly, it is kind of a guide for writers using the Kabbalah as a meta frame, and when I just quickly briefed and skimmed over it, I would look at ideas such as Keter attributed to the will, and Chokhmah assigned to inspiration, and Bina to comprehension. And again, many of these I agreed with, and some of them I first honestly had to like take a step back and go, what exactly do you mean? And really getting into the book honestly just exploded my own creativity. It allowed me to write in a different way, to improve my own writing as an author, as a copywriter, even in some of my own pieces, and give me these different kind of creative exercises to explore. That was really, really fascinating. So if you're a fan of things like The Hero's Journey, if you're a lover of things like The Artist Way, I think you will find a good value of this, especially if you have a Kabbalistic frame, even if it's traditional Jewish or if it's esoteric or Hermetic Kabbalah. Definitely a great piece to look at. It's a very simple or short kind of book. It's definitely nothing in the scope and size of this, but it's a refreshing read. You're constantly going to be opened up as a writer with new perspectives, and you're going to get a deeper understanding of Kabbalah, as her journey is very, very deep in that. She's worked with rabbis extensively. She shares her own journeys, her own traumas, her skill as a writer herself being quite a skilled one. If you look at my interview with her as well, definitely something to explore and enjoy if that is a field that you are fascinated in. Last, but definitely not least, he's been a guest on the show and we spoke about the energy vampire, a longtime priest of the Temple of Set. No more. He's moved on from that post, but still an incredible writer. And in fact, I actually do share a few of my own words inside of this, and I'd actually like to read you my own personal comments on the book, because I had the great fortune of being able to look at this a little bit ahead of time. And my exact words of this is, Don Webb can easily be credited with ensuring a critical and well-researched approach supported with exquisite writing in any of his works. Yet in this dish of intellectual delights, he wins us over even more deeply as he provides the sincere seeker with not only a practical system of modern magic, but also a psychological and spiritual initiation through the very quintessence of the maturing stages of occultism. It is a work that is at once practical and psychobiographical, an honest deep dive into several systems coherently woven into a single elegant tapestry without watering down the true cost of living deliciously. This is a year manual. It really is. If you are somebody looking for a very comprehensive work, especially if you've enjoyed Don's work and you enjoyed ideas such as those coming from the Temple of Satan, some of the several other authors like Tobias and so on that's shared Aquino's incredible, body of work, you will love this. But even beyond that, as a genuine, sincere practitioner, what's really incredible for me is that he offers this almost progressive stage of initiation that allows the practitioner to adapt, and he seems to distill the essence, the word, quite literally, of major essential occult figures throughout the history and the journey of the practice. In fact, as he looks in the book, he basically goes over, I'm just going to read some of that for you. We get to the first stage as the berries, the crossing secret, Janus being the archetype there, the elements Agni, Freya, Paka, Sarvati, the week of reflection on elemental magic, then Egyptian soulcraft, Horus, Isis, Anubis Set, the week of consolidation, the three lovely challenges, faces of time, Verdani, Ut, and Skuld. It's a archetypal expansion within the psyche of the magician, and whilst doing this, exploring these different magicians as well in this practice and their deep essential core of how they influenced and affected our practice. So really a wonderful piece of work, definitely something to take home. So those are some quick recommendations there for me. If you're a practitioner of the craft and you're looking to deepen your work, do grab How to Be a Modern Magus by Don Webb. Definitely a gold standard, as all of his books are. The Kabbalah of Writing, if you are yourself a writer, or if you're using the art of writing in your magic and you liked a cohesive spiritual paradigm for it, the Kabbalah of Writing by Sherry Mandel. If you are a pursuer of the ancient mysteries and you're really trying to understand things like the Logos, the role of the hero's journey, the structure of the ancient pyramids, the technology that is there, and the cathedrals as well in these sacred spaces, the ancient language of sacred sound, the acoustic science of the divine by David Elkington. And then if you are a historian who loves the deeper insights and really exploring this, one of the things I really loved about this that I didn't really understand is I always perceived the pilgrims, with my lack of knowledge, almost just being against the natives. And here was a very interesting, he's got a chapter in here called The Pagan Pilgrim, we speak about it in the show as well, of those rebels, if you will, that actually went against this control system or this attempt to control the natives and the other people, and really did all the efforts that they could to help save them and fight for them. And we see that tragedy. If you looked at my interview and the book review under Lightbringers of the North that did a nice exploration of the magical history of Finland, this is something very nice and a similar trend over the occult metaphysical practices of the old America. So really definitely something to enjoy as a classic. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been insightful. There will be links below for access to all of these videos. I don't use affiliate links, so they're just normal straight Amazon links where I found them. And these are books that I've enjoyed, and these are authors I've enjoyed as well on the show. And as such, people that I do recommend, and I like the way they think. I love the thoroughness of their work, so definitely something to enjoy if these are subjects that matter to you. Until we speak again, remember to live deliciously.